Hey guys, today we'll be looking at some area and perimeter questions with the concept of big minus small. Now let's jump right in. Now the first sentence tells me that the figure is made up of a quadrant and two identical semicircles. First thing I want to do is to identify the shapes. Definitely this is my quadrant. A quadrant is simply just a quarter circle. Alright, so it's 1/4 of a circle. And of course, the semicircles would be over here and this one over here. And what a semicircle is simply just half a circle. Now let's move on to the next sentence. It says length AC is twice of length AB. And looking at my image, it says that AB is 21 cm. So if AB is 21 cm, what I can say is that AC is simply 21 cm multiplied by 2, and that would give me 42 cm. And looking at the image once again, I can see that, hey, length AC is actually the radius of my quarter circle. And of course, 21 cm is the diameter of my semicircle. Now let's move on to the next sentence. The last sentence says, what is the area of the shaded part of the figure? Now, first thing I want to ask myself, what is the formula to find the area of a quarter circle? Now, the area of a quarter circle is simply 1/4 multiplied by pi r square. So I know that 1/4 is 1/4. Pi, the question simply tells us to take pi as 22 over 7. And lastly, r. What is r? The radius of my quarter circle is 42, which is what we found out earlier, right? So it is 42 square. What I am going to get is 1,386 centimeters square. And this is the big of my big minus small. Now that I found my big, I want to find my small. Looking at the image over here, I can see that my small is actually just two identical semicircles. Now, what does two identical semicircles give me? If you think about it, we add them together, it will just give me one circle with the diameter of 21 cm. Alright, and I know that the area of circle is simply just pi r square. Right? And if pi is 22 over 7 and radius is 21 divided by 2, that would give me 10.5 square. I know that the area of my small will simply be 346.5 centimeters square. And this, my friends, is the small that I am going to minus from my big. Now what I want to do is to substitute the values of big minus small over here. And my big is simply just 1,386 centimeters square minus my small of 346.5 centimeters square. And that would give me 1,039.5 centimeters square. And this is my answer for this question. Now let's move on to the next question. Alright, sentence number 1 says, the figure below is made up of a square and a circle. Now, first thing, likewise with the first question, I want to identify where my square is and where my circle is. So I can see that the square is over here and that my circle is right outside over here. Alright, and what does it say in the next sentence? It says that O is the center of the circle. And I can see O is right here. Moving on to the next sentence, it says the diameter of the circle is 14 cm. If the diameter of the circle is 14 cm, what would my radius be? Alright, I know that the radius of my circle would simply be 14 cm divided by 2. And that would give me 7 cm. Now moving on to the last sentence, which is the main question, right? Sentence number 4 says, find the shaded area. So can we identify our big and our small? My big definitely has to be the area of the circle and the small being the area of the square in the center. Let's find our big first, alright? So the area of circle is pi r square. In this question, it says to take pi as 22/7. When we multiply it to our radius of 7 and to square it, keying this into my calculator, I will simply get 154 centimeters square. Now that we are done with our circle, we can focus on the square. Now, how do we find the area of a square? Typically, the area of a square is just length times length, right? And that will simply give you the area. Right, but in this case, do we know the length of the square? Do we know what this length is? No, we do not. But instead, what do we know? We know that the diameter of the circle is 14 cm. Now, what I want to do is to split my square up into 4 parts like that across the diameter of the circle. And looking at this, I know that, hey, this is 7 cm, this is 7 cm. All these are 7 cm, right? Because the radius of my circle is 7 cm. And therefore, these lengths are 7 cm as well. Alright, from here, don't you think I can find the area of one triangle? The area of a triangle would simply be half times length times height. Right, and I know the length and the height of this triangle is simply 7 and 7. Right, so what I have is half times 7 times 7. This would give me 24.5 cm square. How many of such triangles do I have in this square? Right, I know I have 4 of them. So I know that the area of my square is simply just 24.5 cm square multiplied by 4. And this will equate to 98 cm square. Now, to apply what we know into our formula of big minus small, I can say that my big is 154 cm square minus 98 cm square, and this would simply give me 56 cm square. And this is my answer for this question. Now, moving on to the next question, let's jump right in. The figure is made up of a rectangle, a square, and a quadrant. Alright, this is sentence number 1. Now I can see that my rectangle is over here, my square being this, and of course the quadrant being right inside the square over here. Alright, the question is asking us to find the area of the shaded part and to take pi as 3.14. First thing I want to do is to identify my big. Looking at the image, I know that I want my big to be the quadrant plus the rectangle. Alright, so first thing I want to do is to find the area of the quadrant. And I know the formula of area of quadrant is just 1/4 times pi r squared. And that will give me 1/4 times 3.14 multiplied by the radius of 4 cm square. What this will give me will simply be 12.56 cm square. Now the next thing I want to do is to find the area of the rectangle. And that would simply be length times breadth. Now what is the length of my rectangle? I can see that the length of rectangle is this part over here. And if the whole thing is 14 and I know the length of the square is 4, I know that my length of my rectangle is 10 cm. And the breadth is the same as the square, and that would be 4 cm. And the area of my rectangle would simply be 40 cm square. Now adding these two together will simply give me my big. And I know that my big will be 12.56 cm square plus 40 cm square. And this will give me 52.56 cm square. Now to find my small, looking at the picture, I know that I need to remove this triangle over here to find the shaded area. So what I want to do now is to find the area of the triangle. Alright, and I know the area of triangle is simply half times length times height. And that would simply be 12 times the length being 14 and the height being 4. Right, calculating this, that would give me 28 cm square. Now that I've got my big and small, what I want to do is to substitute them into the concept formula, which is big minus small, to find my shaded area. And that would simply be 52.56 cm square minus 28 cm square. And that would leave me with 24.56 cm square. And this is my answer for this question. Moving on to the next and final question of this video, let's get into it. The shaded figure below is formed by quarter circles, a semicircle, a circle, and straight lines of 24 cm each. Now, first thing I want to do is to identify where all my shapes are. Looking at the image, I can see that I have my quarter circles over here. One there and one over here. Next, my semicircle, I can see that I have one over here. And I can see that my circle is right in the middle. And lastly, I got one more big quarter circle over here. Alright, now that we have identified all our shapes, right, one more thing that sentence 1 mentioned is that there are straight lines of 24 cm each in the image. So I know that this is 24 over here, this is 24, this is 24, and here as well. Alright, and knowing that if this is 24 cm, I know that down here I have 24 as well because there is a quadrant inside. Now, first thing I want to do is to identify my big. Looking at the image, I know that my big will consist of the big semicircle over here and the big quadrant over here. So first thing I want to find is the area of my semicircle. Alright, the area of my semicircle, and I know the formula for area of semicircle is half times pi r square. Alright, substituting the values in, I have half times 3.14 according to the question times the radius of my semicircle, which is 24 square. Keying this into my calculator, what I get is 904.32 cm square. Now moving on to find the area of my big quadrant. Area of quadrant is simply 1/4 times pi r square. Substituting the values, that would give me 1/4 times 3.14 times 48 square, because the radius of my big quadrant is 24 plus 24, and that will give me 48. Typing this in my calculator, what I am going to get is 1808.64 cm square. From this, I know that my big would simply just be 904.32 cm square plus 1808.64 cm square, and this will give me 2712.96 cm square. Now that I've got my big, I want to identify what my small is, and that is just the unshaded part inside my big. And as you can see, what I have is this over here. Now to find my small, I first need to find the area of two small quadrants. Looking at the image, I can see that the quadrants have the same radius as my semicircle, and two quadrants would make up one semicircle. So what I can say is that, hey, the area of two quadrants or two small quadrants is simply just the same area as my semicircle, which is 904.32 cm square. And to find the unshaded part, what I need to do is to take the area of the two small quadrants and minus the small circle in the middle over here. And so the area of that circle is pi r square, and I know pi is 3.14, but what is the radius of this small circle over here? Right, if I know that the length, the full length, which is the diameter of the circle, is 24, I know that my radius is just 12 centimeters. And therefore, the area of my circle is 3.14 times 12 square. Keying that into my calculator, that would simply give me 452.16 cm square. Now to find my small, that is simply just 904.32 cm square minus 452.16 cm square. This would simply give me 452.16 cm square. Now finally, what we can do is to take my big minus small, and that would simply be 2712.96 cm square minus 452.16 cm square. This would give me 260.79 cm square, and this is my answer for this question. Thank you.
Hi everyone, if you like this video, you can click right here for a similar video, or you can view our playlist here.